Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Whalen. This is episode number 46 of the Sports Consiglieres Podcast. Along with me is my friend, my pal, Mike Consigliere, the Woodridge assistant head coach for flag football. I promoted him last time, Jerry Calla. Jerry, how you doing tonight?
What's up, Jimmy? Great to be back.
Well, Mr. Last time. I know you had some personal things to take care of. He was a great guest, James Fiorentino. He's got an event on Thursday at the Yogi Berra Museum. It was a good get for the show. Really good to hear his story and what he's doing. A lot of good things. So, thanks for James for coming on. But Jerry, what have you been up to? How's things?
Everything is good, Jim. We have obviously a lot going on in the sports world. We have the Florida Gators just won the national championship. Very exciting Final Four. We also have obviously the NFL draft is coming hard at us, and the rumors, and there's a lot of things going on. I mean, Aaron Rodgers still hasn't signed anywhere. Giants I think we're all over the place. I think many feel that they are not going to take a quarterback at 3. The latest mock draft I saw actually had the Raiders moving up 2 to take Hunter. We shall see. I think right now, obviously Cleveland controls the draft at 2. What they do, I think we're going to obviously not really know until the night of. I really don't see Cleveland trading out of that spot, but I guess you never know. The right package, things can happen. So it should be an interesting draft. I think this is going to be one of the more interesting drafts in a long time.
Yeah, because I think that nobody really knows. I think that you usually for like the first 10 pictures scripted, but it looks like Sanders might drop down to 9. That was the last thing I saw to New Orleans. So that would be interesting.
I would say that since you brought that up, I would say of all the mock drafts out there, that's been the most consistent. I think lately is Sanders dropping to New Orleans. I know Artie Stapleton in the Record had one where the Giants were taking Hunter at 3, and then we're going to trade with Atlanta at 14, I believe, to take Sanders. I just don't think, if Sanders does drop, I don't really think he drops out of the top 10. And what I find interesting in all this is, I guess, the voice of the draft, if you will, Mel Kiper. He still has, as of yesterday, Sanders ranked 1, and Ward ranked 2, which is interesting.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine about Kiper. Here's a guy. I mean, he created this NFL draft thing before he had his draft picked on. Nobody ever picked him up as far as like a Mike Tannenbaum, or Mike Tannenbaum, who was an assistant GM. Nobody ever picked him up. He stayed true to form who he was. He always stuck with the draft. He didn't really deviate from that. He always did it. He did it well. I know he got, he's been crucified, like Irsay on some of these live broadcasts, but for the most part, I mean, he's been true to form as far as his draft, and his lead pipe cinch was his nickname on that. So I mean, I have to really give the credit for the guy. Really, the labor of love as far as going to drafts, and he's very good at it, very entertaining, and very concise. Does his research.
Well, what's amazing is too, I always pay attention to his early. Basically he does this his draft, after the draft, he already has lists going for the following year's draft. And, like you said, he's been on the money. I mean, when we were younger, we started out with Dr. Z from Sports Illustrated.
Dr. Z, sure, yeah.
And then when ESPN came on, Dr. Z was there in the early years. But like you said, Kiper has really taken it to another level. And even with McShay coming in for those years, but now everybody, I wonder if, any GM reaches out to Kiper.
Yeah. I mean,
it's interesting, though.
He never wavered, though. He never got picked up by a team or been a consultant or anything else. He always stuck with that draft. But how do you see the draft going? I think that was a good call. I think 2 shows ago you said Abdul Carter for the Giants. I think that's probably the safe bet, and I think that's where they might go. Defense is always a need. Giants history, they always pack the when they win a Super Bowl, they always pack the pass rushers because their league, and then it's a quarterback lead, it's a passing league. You didn't need to pressure the quarterback, so I think it was a good call on you a couple of shows ago.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talk about this, right? Is it practical, right, for a team? Let's put aside, and I agree with everything you just said. I mean, you look at the Pierre Paul Tuck years. I mean, Strahan, Umanura, Giants always had solid pass rushing, and obviously edge rushers, are Joe Shane's thing. Hence, he traded for Burns, last offseason. But here's the thing. I still don't believe if the Giants didn't, and I know I'm, going to get people are going to disagree, and that's all right. If the Giants didn't sign Wilson and they just signed Winston, okay, for the 2-year, $4 million, and they didn't sign Wilson, I would say, all right, they're definitely in for a quarterback at 3. I don't think that's the case. I think by signing Wilson, with Winston, now you have a true number 1, a true number 2. Wilson's a 1-year deal. Winston's a 2-year deal. And you now have the ability to take the best available player. Maybe you're not sold on Sanders. Maybe you don't think – maybe the Giants just feel that Sanders is going to be gone at 2. Ward's going to be gone at 1. But I just don't see them with signing Wilson, then taking a quarterback at 3. I just don't see how that factors in. And I still think there's a lot of guys, Dart, Milroe, that the Giants, that Dable likes, that they could take down the road, either late first round, move into the first round, or early second round. I mean, remember, they didn't start analyzing these guys, 2 weeks ago. This is a work in process. It's a work in progress. It's a lengthy process. Dable wasn't even going to go to the Colorado Pro Day. I don't know if you saw that. He's adamant in his head coaching career. He doesn't like pro days because they're pretty scripted, obviously, to the player's strengths. The offensive, the college coaches, dictate the workout. So for a quarterback, they're going to stick with the quarterback's, strengths and certain throws and whatnot. So he wasn't even going to go. My opinion, I think the reason why he did go was to get to get a look in person at Henry. And they will obviously have Sanders and they will have these players, in the facility, for a visit. So, it'll be interesting. But I just don't think, why would you sign Wilson with Winston? You sign 2 quarterbacks and you're going to take a guy at 3. I don't see that. What you're telling me is you're going to play Wilson. You're going to hope to be more than competitive because the owner has, gave you a quote unquote mandate. He better see significant progress. Now you see how that goes. You commit to Wilson for 1 year. You got Winston on 2 years. So now maybe in year 2, Wilson goes bye-bye, whatever. And now you have a Dart-Winston combo going in year 2 or a Milroe-Winston combo going in year 2. So that's just the way I see it. And again, what do I know?
Yeah. Well, and also, too, I think, too, having Wilson and Winston and Wilson. Sorry, I was a little, but having them, you can also trade up. You can also trade. So if a quarterback goes down, somebody who's competitive in the middle of the season, you haven't chipped it, so you can parlay that into the next year's draft. So I think we've beaten this ad nauseum. The schedule this year is a schedule, but like I said, we're looking at a 5-6 win team, which is, you're going to get. Unfortunately, in professional sports, you're going to get like that. You get seasons where you're going to have a down year and rebuilding year, and unfortunately, with their schedule, it's murder. So I think that it was a good stack in the quarter. You always use a quarterback. So, but we'll wait and see what happens. But where do you think they go in the second round? What's the need?
Well, I think that's predicated on. So let's say, for argument's sake, they take Carter or they take Henry at 3. I think the next pick is a quarterback, because I think when you get into the second round, you get into guys, that makes sense. The value makes sense where they're picking. And, I think that obviously that's still, a need for the future. So I think overall, without breaking it down pick by pick, I think what you're going to see based on what the Giants did in free agency is you're going to see a very offensive-driven draft from the Giants. You'll see a quarterback minus Carter/Henry with the first pick. But going after that, you'll see a quarterback, you'll see a guard, you'll probably see another tackle. You may even see another tight end. Bellinger, is injury prone. His deal is up. And obviously the offensive line is the offensive line, and they spent a lot of their money on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that's kind of where they'll go, with the draft. I just don't see. I mean, there's some people that think Sanders is going to really drop like past 10, and I don't see that. I don't see him. I don't see him getting past the Saints.
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a fit for the Saints. I mean, they're not that. They're 5-0. I think in the beginning of the season, and they weren't that. They're not that far away. So I think the Saints might be a good fit for him. You have Carr, who's an older quarterback, but it might be a good fit for him. It's probably one of the places that he wants a warmer environment. That's a couple of stipulations he put in. So I think that's where he probably will end up. So, but with the Giants, I could see them going with a Milroe or a Dart in the second round, just as somebody to stash. So I mean that'd be interesting. Any trades or any signings that you're surprised with on this offseason with any teams?
For the Giants?
For anybody. Like I know Jones went to Indianapolis. It looks like Richardson's, he might be on the clock there.
See, that's not a surprise, but again, I just don't. I mean, are they really backing Richardson? Does that help Richardson? I know that they think the competition will. They really didn't back him. I mean, I think they're getting a little quote unquote buyer's remorse with Richardson. The $14 million deal, 1-year deal that they signed Jones, not surprising. I mean, I think that's kind of fair, for somebody like him. It's not past a 1-year deal. And I'll be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me, if he did well. It really wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if he did well. But, Giants had to move on. He was given, I would say, enough opportunity. We could sit here and lob back and forth about the line. The bottom line is if you really break him down, he did miss a lot of throws, and he missed a lot of throws, point blank. I saw a crazy stat that, and again, don't ask me how they calculate this, but apparently in anybody in the NFL, he checked out of at the line of scrimmage more longer throws, if you will, for checkoffs for a shorter route. Whereas Russell Wilson, for example, him and Artie Smith, the OC at Pittsburgh, and Tomlin used to butt heads because Wilson did the reverse. He would check out. He checked out of short passing plays or run plays for a deeper pass play, which I found ironic that the quarterback going out and the quarterback coming in for the Giants are basically the complete opposite of that, if you really think about that. So now, is that Jones just not having confidence in himself, since the injuries, the offensive line? Listen, you put all that aside, it is what it is. Maybe, him not being confident, and, that's not anybody's problem, but, it just didn't work out. We can sit here and we can go, even the year they made the playoffs, he played well. He didn't have 35 touchdowns. He didn't throw 28 touchdowns. He played well. They got to the playoffs, and they surprised a Vikings team. Now, again, Giants still had Barkley, obviously. Different team, different situation. The next 2 years, Jones got hurt the next year, and then the following year he didn't have Barkley. And boy, does the picking Jones at 6, does Dave Gettleman look foolish now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were preaching that was the right move. And then, listen, Barkley wouldn't have the season with the Giants. They haven't really No way. So, but we'll see. But any other signings you're surprised about? Any other movements you're surprised about in the
No, I
offseason?
mean, listen, this is what the NFL always wanted. Where the NFL, and I think this is more the case, just the way the league is constructed, is the NFL to me, and I know you can make the argument about other sports, but the NFL is a 12-month business. It really is. I mean, this free agency, I mean, you get to that Monday, boy, and now it's, I remember back in the day you had, what was it, Plan A free agents, Plan B free agents. It was totally different. You get to this Monday where free agency's open. Sunday night, there's terms in place. The rumors are fast and furious. And Monday, boy, it hits hard.
Yeah.
And it was another active free agency period for the NFL, which is what they want, which is great for the league. And ultimately, it's great because it gives you that enthusiasm, heading into the draft now.
Yeah.
I am surprised. I thought that there was a possibility. The one thing that I was surprised, but again, I thought Stafford was really going to be on the move, not necessarily to the Giants. I thought he was going to be on the move. Obviously, that wasn't the case. He turned and re-upped with the Rams. Other than that, I mean, you always have those salary cap cuts. You're never going to stop that, just the way the salary cap is constructed in the NFL. And now going in, you really, really have. I think maybe it's because of where the Giants are picking, but I think this is one of the more exciting drafts because I think there's still a lot of questions. It's interesting because you have basically the first three teams in the draft. And I think this is why the draft is so interesting. The first three picks in the draft, first three teams in the draft, right, that picked 1, 2, and 3, all need a quarterback. And yet, the experts, if you will, many scouts, pundits, say that there's only 2 generational players in the draft, which is Travis Henry and Carter from Penn State. So now, if you're a team like New England picking 4, is this the year that you benefit by getting a generational talent? Because Cleveland's going to pick for need, or Tennessee's going to pick for need, or the Giants are going to they're going to force that pick at quarterback. So it's a very interesting scenario for a team like the Patriots.
Yeah, more much so. The NCAA tournament. Did you watch the tournament at all? I mean, I know that the Giants got bounced by Arkansas, and they
again,
probably played their worst game all season long, and I guess RJ Louis, Steve Lapis was saying, I don't care if he's 3 for 30, you play him. So I think Pitino had his reasons for not playing him to watch the game. But what do you think overall the tournament and the Johnnies?
Well, I think we've talked about this before. The Johnnies are back. Like you said, they played the worst game at the worst possible time. Typical Rick Pitino. He pivoted very, very quickly, and he's been attacking that transfer portal. There was an article in today's Post about, prospective players coming. I think the Johnnies are in good shape these next few years. As far as the benching, again, it reminded me of the old, John Starks playing, with Pat Riley, with Rolando Blackman on the bench. Riley figured at some point, Starks was a streaky shooter, that, he was going to make some buckets. Pitino stuck to his convictions, and now they move on. But again, like we've talked about many, many times in previous episodes, Carl Banks has shown us a lot of love on social media. The Johnnies are back. They are back. And it's great for basketball in our area. I mean, I really didn't even start watching the Knicks again until recently. And I think, we've talked about this. When St. John's basketball is good, I mean, it is good for this area, and people will, get out and they will support the Johnnies.
Well, like you said,
as far as the tournament goes, I'm shocked. I'm not shocked that Florida won. I'm shocked the way that game kind of played out. Houston was up by 13 at one point. I thought Houston had a little mojo obviously the way their victory over Duke, the way that game transpired. But the Gators with their third national championship in school history.
Well, I mean, be honest with you, Saturday night, I was watching the Houston Duke game, and I ended up going to bed. I thought my wife, and my daughter, next day, I said, "Yeah, Duke won," and then lo and behold, I'm looking on social media and they lost. So I had to rewatch. I rewatched the game on Monday, but I mean, that was an epic failure on that. I mean, I don't know if you can blame so much on the coaching on that or the defense. I mean, you could probably set up some inbounds plays, or you probably could have had more ball handlers on the court if you're Duke. But I mean, the defense on it for Houston was really tough. And conversely, I thought at the end of the game for Houston, looked like they swallowed the basketball. I mean, it looked like they didn't set up any plays. I mean, Sampson's won wherever he went. And I thought this was Houston's year, 6-time in the NCAA, and they had Akeem Olajuwon there. I thought that this was going to be their year, and they had an older team. The one guy was there for 6 years, but I'll tell you, man, Golden, that team's tough. It looks like Clayton, he's a pro. I mean, he's a pro. So it looked like they played really well, and hats off to them for Florida for winning their third national championship. But do you see this with basketball, like have and have-nots with the NIL, transfer portal, a conference like the Big East? Are they going to suffer in the future? Because there wasn't really a shift until kind of the Big East happened, and John Thompson won the national championship. It was like 40 years, and he said in this press conference that a small school from the Northeast won the national championship. But I mean, do you think that the scales are getting tipped as far as these bigger schools that they're going to start paying these players, and then they're going to figure things out? They're going to have capologists and NIL. I mean, what do you think about that?
First of all, tremendous question. Before I get to the question, I just want to expand upon one point. In the national championship game, Sampson, right, and we know Sampson's pedigree. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. He came out of not one but 2 timeouts, right, with nothing going on. I mean, anybody that watches basketball, I mean, they didn't even get a shot off.
Yeah.
Both times. I mean, that's inexcusable. I mean, listen, you come out of a timeout, you run up, coach draws up a play, right? Basketball 101 in that spot. You have to, there's no situation, in my opinion, no circumstance where you can't come out of not 1 but 2 timeouts, not even a shot. Not even a shot. And again, the ball has to go to the rim. It's that simple. And it's a big time coach, and not, in a big spot. And, ultimately, you want to say that, I mean, listen, Florida's D was smothering, but it's just bad coming out of a timeout with a guy like Sampson's pedigree. I'm sorry. I was expecting better. And I think everybody watching, agrees with that.
Well, now also the playmakers they had on their team too. They had people that could shoot. Right. They had Cryer, they had Sharp. I mean, people that shoot. I mean, like they look like the complete team. But like I guess it's something that's going to haunt Houston fans. I mean, they just can't get over the hump. Just really 6 times in the NCAA tournament, he just can't. So I mean, he's 69. I don't know how much longer he's going to be hanging on. But that team was built to win this year.
Absolutely. Again, look at when they lost to Jimmy V in '83. You talk about a stacked team. So it's just interesting, Houston's career in the big dance, if you will. But getting to your question now, I think we're at a situation with the NIL, where the NIL is creating a situation where we're going to see the bigger schools are going to stay at the top. You're going to see Final Fours where the 1 or the 2 seed, are the Final Four. I think, we're not going to see dances, by like a St. Peter's, or an Iona, or like an FDU, to use local schools. I think, those teams will be very hard pressed to come in to a tournament and even win a game. And I just think that's where we're at. We're at where the big guys are going to stay big and the little guys are going to stay little. And it's going to be, like I guess it once was, where you didn't see these upsets once upon a time ago, where a true one, you're going to see true ones and playing true 16s, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean that's true because I mean if you look at it, and also the transfer portal opened up in the middle of the tournament, so it's crazy. The NCAA,
It's
I think
insane. And like
they
you said, you look at Belichick, right? I know we're shifting to football, right?
yeah,
The first thing Belichick did, right, when he got that job, is he brought in Mike Lombardi. Right, Mike Lombardi was the GM of the Browns and the GM of the Patriots, right? Just to get a hold of this NIL stuff, and I think you're going to see, situations like that where more schools are you want to call it a capologist, an NIL director, whatever the term is, I mean, Belichick's calling him the general manager of Carolina football. So I think you'll see that, at all these bigger schools,
yeah,
because it is complex. There's ways to get the student. I mean, I hate to even say this, right? Like Gino Auriemma says, can you really call them student athletes anymore? It's semi-pro sports. It really is. But I think there's money to get to the student athlete, and the schools that have money are just going to find ways to be even more and more creative and to have more and more lucrative options, if you will, for potential players.
Well, I just think that NCAA's got to get a handle over it. I mean, like 2-year contracts was something that's being kicked around. So like the transfer portal opened up after the NCAA tournament. So they're going to have to get some sort of handle on this because it's just some of these kids are making more money in college than they will when they graduate college. So
like you said, right? Why? Let's say if you're whoever, right, and you're at Maryland, right, and you say, okay, I can go to the NBA and I'll get drafted at some point, and then I'll hover in the G League, right, or the developmental league, right, whatever. You're probably in a better financial situation staying at Maryland.
Yeah. And speaking of Maryland, I know Willard. We touched on that last episode. He ended up finally going to Villanova, but I think the street was talking on that one. I think everybody who was in the know that he was leaving Maryland. And then, what do you think about that situation? And
well, I mean, he tipped his hand. We talked about this previous episodes. It's actually a little sickening, in my opinion, because he brings a team to the Sweet 16, and it's basically 100% the camera and the lights are off the kids, and it's the camera and the lights are on him and the AD. And it was a shame. Maryland got bounced. Was that a distraction? I'm sure. It really took away from their season, in my opinion. And again, I mean, like you said, really better not play poker because he made it clear, that last week and a half of his Maryland tenure that he was going to Nova. He couldn't have made it any clearer,
But what about him and Nova? You think that listen, Neptune, he was there 3 years, he didn't make the NCAA tournament. They have an appetite for winning. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I guess Nardi took him out to that tournament out there. Did well. Nardi. The reason I mentioned him is St. Patrick's Elizabeth Guard. I saw him play as a freshman in the county championship, 14 years old, and pull up a 3 in a packed house in Dunn Sports Arena. That's on a side note, but I mean, great player.
But there's always room. It's always an interesting show when you mention Elizabeth.
Yeah, I always have to mention Elizabeth. So, but anyway, but I just think we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what that happens. But I mean, and then Buzz Williams, I guess he has a formula. He left A&M and went to Maryland. So I mean, I think that's a good fit for them. Big Ten. But I mean, it's crazy, but I just hope that something gets rectified here. But the NCAA seems to be asleep at the wheel as far as with these contracts and transfers and everything else. Everybody's saying it, but nobody's doing anything about it. I don't know if they're talking about maybe disbanding the NCAA and making like these power conferences. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in college basketball and college sports right now. So with that,
no, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, what's happening is, NCAA is big business. Are they ever going to get control of the NIL? These conferences. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think we're headed. I referenced Gino Auriemma. I mean, he had that classic line where people were upset. He was like, "This is semi-pro athletics now. This is not college athletics." So it's an interesting time. Like you see, what Patino, what he can do with his reputation, with some money, with playing, in the Garden. He obviously turned down St. John's, pretty quickly, and I expect Kevin Willard to be very successful at Villanova to return them to their glory years.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, all right. Well, I think we'll close this one out. So I think we got a lot of stuff coming up. We're got a couple guests coming up. We're gonna have probably highlight the draft and find out, be pre and post draft shows as that evolves. But this episode was produced by Chop Sports Media, Dave Sturcio. I'll leave this off with you, Jerry. What do you have? Any parting words? And then also with our 50th show coming up, any special guests you want us to reach out to? So just follow us on social media at Sports Consiglieres on Facebook and on Instagram, and also at Whalebones for me on X. But what do you have? What do you have to close the episode out with, Jerry?
All I have to say is, let's go Yankees, baby. Let's get it together.
And sad to hear about. Add on a bad note. Sad to hear about Octavio Dotel. Got killed in that freak accident. He was a middle reliever for the Mets and the Yankees down at the DR. So
horrible.
That was what a horrible situation. But a lot of sports. Devils lost last night, so they make the playoffs, and then they knocked the Rangers off. So we're out there getting the feelers out for guests. So just contact us on social media. Jerry, what do you got? Why don't you close this episode out?
Jimmy, another great episode. Stay tuned. We have some exciting guests lined up, and like Jimmy said, we'll be back soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Enjoy the day.